doing business with the government or with DOD would be, hey, this is cool, right? You like these? You whip out your government credit card and buy 1,000 of them. And I was like, it doesn't work that way, pal. It's, there's a whole process that goes on, and it's unbelievable in its bureaucracy and its complexity, but it's there for a reason. So last year at the IMSH conference, which is like the medical ITSIC, it was here in town. And I set up a couple of times a day and I went through this briefing and it was very well received. People came in and went through, okay, you remember the old after school special about how a bill goes through Congress? Well, it's kind of like how a requirement goes from a requirement all the way to a capability back in the user's hands. So that's what you're going to see today here.
You just got to point it over here.
So what about that?
How about we'll just got it. There we go.
There we go. So again, a little bit about us. This is our mission and vision. Mission is purposely short and to the point. Healthcare and readiness is where we're at. And the readiness is enabled by training, and the training is enabled by simulation. And that's where we come in. Our vision, I purposely put excellence in acquisition, because that's what we do. We're a team of about 17 or 18. Most of us are acquisition professionals. We're not medics. We're not doctors, or we're not nurses. We're acquisition professionals. I do have a couple of clinical, I got one clinical folks, Roger right here, and Gil Vallejo is a retired medic, air medic. So he's not with us today, but I do have some medical expertise. And then we rely on folks back in our requirement shop to bring that expertise as well. But what we do mainly is acquisition. And to that end, so the Assistant Secretary for Health Affairs created this PM. There's a lot of data coming out of OIF and OEF a few years ago about the need for training, and again, training enabled by simulation. So they stood up our office. This is around 2013. And what you see there, those underlined action verbs, really in DOD, those are things any program manager would do, whether it's a Joint Strike Fighter or boots or medical simulation. And we're no different in that regard. So we're always looking at science and technology. That's where Tech Grove, I think, is going to help us out. Looking at transitioning science and technology in response to requirements. We should support the shared services medical training requirements and the combatant commands requirements. That includes all the military hospitals. They all have the simulation requirements, and we're here to support those. And that's what I'll show you here in a moment. And you look at standardize and centralize. Why do you do that? Because it makes you more effective and efficient, and it makes sense across the enterprise. The products are standardized, you're buying in large quantities, economic order buys, and you're saving money. And it's easy to configuration manage as well when you do that. And then again, this is not anything different than what most PMs and DOD do. And we do it across the entire life cycle, from really the inception of the requirement. We don't generate the requirement. And again, I'll get into that in a minute, but we're there. When it's generated, we walk it through all the way eventually to disposal. Simulators wear out after a certain number of years and you have to dispose them. That's PM's job as well. I put this slide in. We get a lot of calls and requests from folks out in the field. Hey, I want a mannequin, especially the special ops folks. They want a mannequin that replicates the human form in its entirety. And I know, Angela, you can appreciate this. They want it to be a human without, actually having a soul. So you can't have that, right? It doesn't exist. And you have to pick. Do you want fidelity or durability or performance? And you can't have all three, no matter how much you pay. So what we end up doing is asking these folks, well, what task are you trading? And from that, we can derive what specific mannequin or line of mannequins they need. Oftentimes we find, they're shopping for a Ferrari when really what they need is an F-150. And we help them adjudicate that, save them a lot of time and save them a lot of money as well. But mannequin technology is advancing, and I think it's going to continue to advance what we're looking for, and I think our users are looking for, is that generational leap. And I don't know if it's, AR, VR, mixed reality, and the goggles and the gloves. What I hear from the medics, the gloves just aren't there yet, and the sensitivity, and you're touching or you're doing a surgery or a procedure. Yeah, maybe you can put a tourniquet on, but some of the more delicate tasks, the gloves aren't really there yet, what I'm told. So here we go. Far left, whether it's a hospital, a service, or a combatant command, SOCOM, AFRICOM, folks like that, will identify a need or a gap that they have. And it could be driven by, we've received new equipment, there are new procedures out there, there are incidents that are occurring now that weren't occurring before. So it's like, okay, we have to train for this. Treatment methods, maybe new products or new vaccines or other methods. So that drives a requirement to train, and you can train in simulation. As I said, one enables the other. So they'll relay that to the requirements owner, Defense Medical Modeling and Simulation Office, otherwise known as DMSO. They're under DHA's J7 shop. They're my requiring activity, as if on the arm, if you're, those of you that are familiar with PEO Stride, he's my trade-off. He's my CAT-T, right? So he takes the user's input, takes the requirement, and he looks at it and says, okay, first let me validate it that, yep, it's a requirement. Then they go through this process called DOCMIL PFP. Doctrine, organization, training, material, leadership, education, personnel, facilities, and policy. Every one of those things affects how you train, who you train, and where you train, and all the other aspects you see there. Because a gap in training may not require a simulator or a material solution. Maybe you just change some doctrine. Maybe you change the way leadership is teaching, an instructional change. Maybe there's a facility change, you're outside, you need to be inside, or vice versa. It doesn't always require, okay, here's $10 million, go buy me a suite of simulators. So they'll do that adjudication, and we're with them there. We have plenty of experience, like I said, in my shop, and we'll help them do that adjudication. So if it comes out that, yes, we need a simulator, here's a requirement. Usually for us, it's like a capability needs statement. We don't do JSIDs very much. It's just too slow and too bureaucratically heavy. So we'll get a capability needs statement from them that becomes our requirement. And like I said, we're with them, we're with DMSO throughout this process. It's not a, hey, I've got a requirement, toss it over the fence, call me when you're done. Doesn't work like that. Just so happens as you're on the left moving right, the lead roles change. So when they're drafting the requirement and they're interfacing with the field, we're there with them, but we just don't happen to be in the lead. Once it comes to the program management office and we've got a requirement in hand and we start building the acquisition package, then we take the lead. And along the way, we're in touch with science and technology. We're doing market research to see the state of the art that's out there, what the industry is using as their procedures, maybe looking at potentially who they're teaming with, and all those other aspects that are, I think, we call that market research. So that's going on basically until it's awarded, and sometimes even after. And so while this is going on, we're doing market research. We're also trying to get our arms around how much is this going to cost, and over how many years are we going to need development? And if it's a production run, we're going to need procurement dollars, and then we're going to need operations and maintenance to sustain it. All those things have to be factored in, and that's what the PM does. As we're developing the acquisition package, we'll put a draft RFP out there, then we'll put an actual RFP, go through, get the proposals, do the evaluation, eventually get to an award. And once you're awarded, now you've got an industry partner and we're off and running. We'll be with them to test. We'll have design reviews, verify it, field it, and then eventually sustain it. And as I said before, we are there kind of on the periphery when DMSO's drafting the requirements. They are with us as we're going through the verification and testing and any of my programs have weekly IPTs, and generally there's a rep or two from DEMSO that are there as we go through the contracting process to eventually get it back to the folks that drafted the need in the first place. You deliver it to them and you know, you're off and running. I've got that continuous feedback, and those of you that have been there know, once you feel that it's not over with, you're going to get comments, you're going to get suggestions or problems, and you need to be able to build your contract so that you can maybe tweak the requirement a little bit, tweak the contract a little bit to make sure you're giving that user exactly what they need. So I think I would assume most of you, if not all of you in the room, know these websites are no surprise to you, but that's where our opportunities are posted. If we're putting out a draft, you'll see it there. If we're putting out the actual RFP, you'll see it there. An RFI or a source of SAW, these sites are where you'll see it. And that includes the T-Rex is posted here too. T-Rex opportunities, right, Brett? I think, Chris, you'll make these slides available to folks.
Yep.
So you'll have this. Now, it's really the meat of why we're here. The myths, and these, you know, we didn't just sit around a table and think these up. These are from years of experience and actual, you know, real world of events that have happened to us and what we've seen more than once in most of these cases. So I'll start with the first one, the first myth. Acquisition strategy, contract type, period of performance, your technical parameters, requirements are determined and fixed at the beginning of the acquisition process. Not true. And by the beginning of the acquisition process, that's when you're drafting the requirement. So what is the requirement? What is our market research showing? What is it providing us? How much funding do we have? How much time do we have? All those determine, and it's kind of, you know, you're baking this loaf of bread very slowly to get it to the point to where you've got all the right answers and your answers match what the requirement dictates, right? So you're kind of in sync there. So it's a delicate dance, but we don't sit around at the very beginning going, it's going to be fixed price for 5 years. It's going to have this, you know, this many quantities ordered to these sites. It's going to be this technology. We may know some of that, but it continues to evolve throughout the process. Now, once you release the RFP, you can't evolve it anymore. Obviously, you're done. Number 2, source selection is predetermined, and I'll say not on my watch, right? That's a big one. There are enough checks and balances, and you know there are enough checks and balances between the PM, the lawyers, and the contracting folks, and enough panels and boards that these go through that you can't do that. And again, a good program manager, most of them are good program managers, is definitely going to make sure that that doesn't happen. Even a bias on your team, you don't want that going in. It's all, you're not evaluating, we're not evaluating industry contractors against each other. We're evaluating them against the criteria. All the same criteria, you're all evaluated against that. The third one, the government doesn't really read the proposals. That's BS. We have to read the proposals. Again, there are enough checks and balances. There are enough people that read the products from the lowest level evaluator through the evaluation board lead, all the way up again to the contracting PCOs and the division chiefs and the lawyers. And eventually you're going to be at a table debriefing the unsuccessful offers. So if you haven't read it, that's not going to go well, right? And you're probably going to end up with a protest. We have to read the proposals, and believe me, we do. That gets to why, that's number 5. I'll get to that in a minute of why it takes so long. Number 4, this is a big one too. Industry's non-compliance with instructions to offerers are often ignored. Not true. It's BS. If we tell you the page count is 30 and you come in at 31 or 32, you're going to be deemed non-compliant and you're going to be thrown out. It's as simple as that. And I think that just, again, talking to some folks in industries, like, plus or minus 5%, or no. If we do one, we have to do them all. And then you're in a no holds barred kind of Wild West situation to where you're just making the rules and changing the rules as you go. If it says 30 pages, it's 30 pages. If it says a particular type of font and a particular pitch and this many graphics, that is the requirement that you stick to. And that often tells us as the government, as evaluators, if they can't even follow simple directions like this, and I know you want to cram as much in there, as much information that you think we need as possible, but it tells us if you can't follow simple written instructions, I'm not sure you're going to do a very good job building my simulator, right? So it's very important, and it's not ignored. Hold to that, and I've seen it, and I think the contractors that have a compliance check for those things, I'm not telling you how to do your job, but that's money well spent to have compliance checks before your proposals go out the door. Let's see, number 5, the government wants the process to be lengthy and complicated. No, we don't, but it is. And it is because it has to be. And it has to be because of all those checks and balances I talked about earlier. There are a lot of checkers checking the checkers to get it right and make sure that what we said we're going to do, we did, and that we did the right thing and we did it the right way. And that takes time. As a program manager, I don't like that. I don't like the time it takes. I like the discipline and the governance and the rigor that goes into it, because you end up with a better contract and you end up with a better capability when the thing is built and fielded. But I know I have users out there that said, I need this, and we've gone through the process, we've secured the money, I want to get it to them as soon as I possibly can. But it doesn't always work that way. Money supply is infinite. No, it's not. Even at DHA, it's not. We will put in the palm, and depending on how generous your resource sponsor is, you may get a little bit more, if it's there, but in the fiscal environment today, and even DHA, you're stuck with what you got, and you're probably going to get less than what you asked for. And that's just the nature of the beast. So if our proposals come in and, they're above what we had targeted, now we're in a cost trade-off environment or a requirements trade-off, CAVE, right? Cost is an independent variable. So we're going to go, okay, user, what's the most important thing, stacked all the way down to the least important thing. And then we start cutting until we reach the money line that we have. And those things happen every day. Solutions are predetermined. Technical solutions, no, not anymore. Back in the days with mill standards, you have to do it exactly this way, and you have to build exactly this widget. Maybe in the nuclear reactor world that might still hold true, but in our world, it's not. We want industry to come in with creative solutions and creative technologies, new technologies. And don't be afraid to introduce that the government is kind of old and set in their ways and they're going to shy away from that. It's not true. That's a myth. Come in with what you got, show that it works, and price it right, and you're in the game. Let's see, the PM or contracting officer can unilaterally determine the requirement, budget for, and acquire the capability. I always say acquisition is a team sport and it's a contact sport as well between those entities there, but it's purposely set up again to be a bureaucracy that no one person or one office has complete control, kind of a church and state type of thing. And that, it can be frustrating, but it works. And the last one, the government dislikes industry technical exchanges or demonstrations. Absolutely not true. That's part of our market research, and it's vitally important that we get these technology demonstrations. Now, if you're in an active acquisition and you've got products out on the street, generally, at least one of my rules is I'm not going to keep entertaining folks on, capability demonstrations on this product that's on the street. Put it in your proposal and we'll look at it there. I'm not going to keep having, because it looks like you're biased, and it looks like you're giving favorites to one guy as opposed to the other. Kind of like the politicians. If one goes on Fox News, then they all have to go on Fox News or something like that. But no, we like them and we need them, and we invite the technical interchanges and demonstrations. And yeah, this is my closing slide. A couple of action shots of this is what we do, saving lives through simulation. Yep, that's it. Questions? Sure.
Hey Jude, I was curious, what organization or organizations are responsible for your S&T, and how does your program office interact with them?
So that's a great question, and it's very timely. So originally we used JPC1 out of DHA. They were under the J9, the R&D arm of DHA. And they had a very robust budget and a very robust group of people for any number of reasons. They were kind of downsized and then rolled under JPC6, which is the IT S&T. And it was almost as if, I don't know exactly what happened, but it was almost as if they're not putting emphasis on simulation S&T, and it's down to one guy now, literally, and they have no budget. So organically within DHA, I don't have a source for S&T. So now I'm looking out there for alternative sources. I use Dr. Pettit here with the STTC, the DevCom folks. They've got a great S&T shop over there doing lots of medical simulation. We work with them quite a bit. The folks from Tatric help us. And Usanda was the other one, yeah. And then of course we look at industry too. So again, in medical simulation, it's different from what you would say are the move, shoot, communicate training devices. It's not a ship or an Apache helicopter. It's a human body and the interaction and the human form. So we can rely more than the typical say Army PM on industry and industry's technologies out there. It's a good question.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So in more general, can you talk a little bit about how acquisitions affect by continuous resolution as opposed to budget?
So right now, what we use RDT&E dollars, which are 2-year appropriations. So if we were having a new program coming in with new appropriations, that would be a new start under CRA. We could not do that until it was lifted. But normally we're set up, we're phased, and we try to do that deliberately so that we've already begun a program. And I've been very fortunate and blessed that my RDT&E budget hasn't been cut, knock on wood, but it hasn't been cut. Our money actually comes from Assistant Secretary of Defense for Health Affairs. So it comes directly down through the CAE and DHA to us and others. We're not the only ones that receive it. So it's kind of fenced in that regard, and it's not subject to big, massive cuts. The other benefit, DHA in that regard doesn't use a lot of RDT&E. They use O&M, big TRICARE and MHS Genesis contracts, all O&M funded. So the RDT&E budget is not really looked at as targets for cuts, fortunately.
Do you have an acquisition forecast in this?
No, not really. Just we've got programs, and there's one specific requirement I can talk about. It's still in very early form. It used to be called J-points, but it's AJOMs, Advanced Joint operational medical simulation. If you're familiar with the Mystic on the Army side, the Medical Simulation Training Center, this is a Mystic with much more capability for the joint services. So we're looking at that as a joint requirement, and it hasn't even been staffed yet. We met with the DIMSO folks earlier this year, a couple of weeks ago, to kind of get that finalized and get it started staffing. But I don't have enough, like a PM trade or something, to put a big long list out there. It's pretty simple and not a lot there.
Related to that question, do you have like a process, or how do you requirements and programs go? Is this just brainstorming around the office, or?
No, that's, like I said, the folks out in the field, whether it's a hospital or an 18 Delta soft medic with SOCOM, will come up with a requirement. They vet that through DIMSO. DIMSO looks at it and says, okay, this requires a material solution. And then they'll start drafting a capability needs statement, and they get help. We're one of the folks that help them. J5, it's kind of strategic planning branch at DHA. They help them. That comes to us as a requirement that we'll plan, program, and budget, and eventually write a contract to fulfill it. But no PM writes their own requirements. We call that the self-licking ice cream cone. Doesn't happen. Shouldn't happen. Yeah.
You mentioned you work with STC and capture and such for your STC stuff. What kind of an engagement is that? Are you pushing like, hey, I would like for you guys to be researching new STC ideas, or are you kind of in receipt mode and they're doing stuff and you're just observing what their progress is, seeing how these requirements are being?
It's both. It's whatever suits the need. I mean, they'll call us and go, hey, I got this thing out there. U-Shoes is another, Dr. Lopriato. We work with him closely. We funded him, and he built some escharotomy and lateral cathotomy trainers that DIMSO is now writing a requirement. So they've already gone through all that S&T, and now DIMSO is writing a requirement because there's folks out there that want them. I can't go to DHA's budget shop, the JA, and say, I need money, but I don't have a requirement. They throw me out the office, right? So I need a requirement to get the money to write a contract to build it and field it. Anybody else?
Do you apply statistical analysis to the programs? Like, here's how much you were going to bid it for, and this is what it really came out of the end. How effective was it to the desired goal?
There's a bit of analysis that's done. Yeah. I mean, we have what's called an independent government cost estimate, IGCE. And so when it's going through, and usually the pre-award phase, right up to award, they'll look at it, and there's folks on the contracting side that look at the pricing, say, well, you're within 15% or 20%. You're within that window. But if a set of proposals comes in and you're way out there, your IGCE is nowhere near what this shot group of proposals is. You might have to go back and do some homework and maybe even start over.
Do you have some questions from the
Oh,
chat?
wow. Oh my God.
So it's like the TCK is the first one.
Do any of your simulation requirements touch on analysis or wargaming? So we have learning management systems. Brett's program, the VEC, the Virtual Education Center, they consider that a learning management system. He's also working a program called Intramed that is not so much learning management, but learning repository system. Yeah. So we're not strictly, CADs, simulators. We do learning management systems. We do educational systems as well. Anything that's closely related that comes down the pipe from DIMSO, we'll take and we'll do it. Okay, let's see next. Are there any specific deadline dates we should be aware for applying to select contracts in general? So any dates or any other relevant information is going to be in an announcement that's put out, whether it's an RFI or instructions to offers. things like that, that you'll see on those websites I showed earlier. That's where the communication's done. Once we're in that phase, all the communication goes through the contracting officer so that it's managed and it's consistent. So that's anything as far as how long you have to develop your proposal, when it's due, if it's extended, all that comes from the contracting office. And, oh, hey, Leslie. Who is the small business, deputy small business that supports DHA procurements? Small business thing. She recently retired. I know the office. I can get that to you. I'll send that to you in a separate email. But she recently retired out of DHA under their contracting shop. But I don't even know if they backfilled her yet or if somebody's acting. But I'll get you that info. Would love to connect. Is there any freeze dates this year for new contracts? Not that I know of.
That's it on mine.
That's it? Oh,
Yeah.
it wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
It looked intimidating at first, like this, oh my God, I'll be here an hour.
Yeah.
Anybody? Yeah.
I know for you, Jude, how does the department differentiate between a service requirement and a DHA requirement? You mentioned medic in the field.
Yeah,
Might
yeah.
have a requirement, but I can see that sometime being, yeah, that's an Army specific requirement and may go to another organization, but may not come to you.
That's another great question. You're a good straight man. Just so you know, I mean, there's this constant battle and this constant tension between Force Comm. These are my medics. They help me meet, my mission, and DHA and DHA's director, General Crossland, has been very upfront and very direct that we are here to support them. We're not here to take that mission. We're here to do whatever they need us to do to support that mission. It could be simulators, it could be devices, medical devices. It could be, logistical supplies and things like that augment what they need to meet their mission. But there's always that tension. First we were like, okay, role 1 and role 2, battlefield and immediate evacuation. That's the services, let them do that. And then we'll take it to get them to the hospital. That's even blurred now and it's not really defined. And they haven't really had that conversation at the 4-star level where they would need to have it. So we just kind of drive on, and if we're told to stop, we stop, which we haven't been yet. The AJOMS requirement I was talking about, I was pretty happy and actually proud of that. We had all the services represented and SOCOM in a room, actually got them to agree on something, got them to agree on a lot of things with this requirement that now it's almost ready to staff. So, there's ways that you can get things done. Once we start fielding at locations, it's going to be tough. There's going to be, if I have to go to Fort Campbell or go to Fort Hood and go, hey. But the other thing is, I don't know if you know, but the Mystics are going into sustainment in 25. They're not going to have any funding to do any development. And I don't know how long their O&M, the WCLS, is going to last. So they're kind of going out to pasture. And I think AJOMS is going to be welcomed as the hands-on replacement because, like I said, medics like to touch things and they like that tactile, and Steve's not there yet. Right? Steve, if you're a medic, I don't think Steve's going to satisfy you for maybe a decade or so.
Thanks, Jude.
Yeah. Anybody else? Okay. Like I said, we're over here in Partnership 3. Chris and Chris has my information. So if you want to contact me, just reach out.
Yeah, we'll make those slides available for everybody. And other than that, we appreciate you coming, being engaged. Thank you.
Thanks.